Hello and welcome to Central Georgia Focus, the Ask Mayor Miller edition. I'm your host today, Liz Fabian from the Macon newsroom of the Murphy Center for Collaborative Journalism. As always, this is your chance to ask questions of Macon-Bibb County Mayor Lester Miller. We ask him questions from the public and the journalists at the CCJ. As always, thanks, Mayor, for joining us this morning. You know, the County Commission recently passed the fiscal year 2026 general fund budget of nearly $220 million. What are some of the highlights that you can share of that package?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that it passed unanimously with all the commissioners. It only requires about 2/3, but everyone agreed to it. I think a lot of that's because we had meetings ahead of time individually with commissioners to make sure that, you know, their needs and their wants were the same as mine. So some of the highlights include the items like public safety that we always put in there. Once again, we increased our public safety budget. IT was one of the other areas because, you know, with information technology and with AI and all those things that happen here, that became very important. We continue to fund beautification efforts in our community, those types of things. What I also say is we did not raise taxes. We may actually roll the taxes back a little bit when the digest comes back. But it's a tight budget. We went up just a short amount from last year to this year because we want to kind of keep things in check with the national environment right now. We want to make sure that we're very fiscally conservative.
GPB's Josephine Bennett was just curious about what increased spending for recreation there will be and what kind of projects you have in mind for that.
Well, the recreation itself mainly comes through additional programming that we have, like our summer camp that we've got this summer that's a very good deal for folks that are looking for places to go. It's taking care of the youth sports, hiring more staffing at those places to make sure staffing, and could consider increasing the number of hours that we have there as well. So recreation has increased every year since 2021, and it's something that we've been very consistent about.
Of course, the property tax assessment period is underway, which ultimately determines the tax digest, the amount of final revenue that will be the final figure. So how is that process going so far this year? Have you heard anything about, you know, appeals being flagged or?
Well, I get updates periodically, and I think we have nothing like the craziness they have over in Monroe County with 18-20%.
Wow.
Our tax digest is, I think, only up about 5%, and a lot of that's new growth. It's not raising people's assessments on property they already own, so that's a positive. And very little appeals this year, so that's a good sign as well. Of course, we went through a complete reevaluation a couple of years ago, and that's when the sticker shock came in, but at the same time we did our OLUS rollback, so it was really a non-event. So I think it's going to be a very smooth year this year. Looking forward for the tax digest getting done so we can set the millage rate for this next year, but certainly it's either going to remain the same or go under than what it was before.
Well, I was kind of surprised when I was looking at the budget ordinance that you passed on June 17th. There's more money, $240 million, that comes in from other sources other than, you know, the general fund tax dollars, revenue, the property taxes. Like there's $21 million in American Rescue Plan funds still available, $36 million in other grants, $17 million in the solid waste fund, those kinds of things. That's a lot of money. So how did those funds factor into the county's operation?
Well, it helps us set the millage rate. When we tell people that our budget, property tax budget, has become more balanced now, that's what we're talking about. Just in 2021, I think we were looking at about $84 million roughly for property tax. Even though assessments went up after that period of time, the amount that we're collecting from property tax holders are about $54 million. So we look for other opportunities through our, you know, solid waste has to go to a certain place, right? So
right.
Those are restricted funds toward that purpose, but we're looking for other ways other than the taxpayers. But with all the great tourism we have coming on in our community, the people coming in from outside each and every day and on the weekends, makes it a lot easier for our citizens to lessen the tax burden on them. We're finding out that balanced approach is working really well, particularly in the environment we're in right now.
Well, you know, in recent public comments, the head of the Democratic Party here in Bibb County suggested not spending SPLOST money on the auditorium, but investing it in housing. But it's not really that simple, right? Can you explain how certain non-general funds are restricted, like you just said for the solid waste? You can't spend solid waste funds on new cars for the sheriff's office or something like that, right?
Right, we have a lot of folks who are not very educated on the process and what happens with funds. The SPLOST dollars have to be used for capital improvements and has to be on property that we own. So certainly we don't own the houses to do that for, but the good news for that person is that we put $7.5 million of funds for our Macon-Bibb County affordable housing. It's starting to get addressed very well. We've probably built more houses here in the last 3 or 4 years from a public standpoint and affordable housing that we have in the previous decade. So those are very positive signs. We're going to continue to make progress on that. We have the other housing that's going to become available for first-time housing owners, and we have some down payment assistance. So there's many things on the horizon for housing, and we're looking forward to putting that forward in 2025 and 2026.
Well, the Macon-Bibb County Planning and Zoning Commission is currently doing a 2050 housing study and forecast, trying to look at what the trends will be going a couple of decades ahead. So what do you think really needs to be done? Like, if you had a crystal ball, what could you do to improve housing conditions?
Well, first of all, you need more housing and you need it less expensive. Doesn't necessarily mean affordable housing in respect that some people say. I would like to see a lot less apartment complexes and see more individual homes or duplexes. I think to allow people opportunity to build wealth. We've eliminated some of this blight, so we like to do some infield housing as well to replace that. Going to be some great announcements coming over there in the Napier Heights area with a lot of homes being built there with a collaboration amongst several of our stakeholders. So we're excited about that, so I'd like to see that probably in the next near future.
I go through Napier Heights every day on the way to work, and it's so refreshing to see some of these old abandoned houses that were covered in greenery have now been, the lots have been cleared and new wood is going up on them. They're being renovated, so that's very encouraging. The 2018 SPLOST collection is nearly complete, but it looks like it will continue through the next quarter because that's the way it's written.
Right.
If you pass into a next quarter, you get to collect for the whole fiscal quarter. So what is the process now of compiling the 2025 SPLOST project list?
Well, we are, as you recall, we've already started that process. We did a $50 million bonds to allow us to do things such as roads. That's one of our priorities. The number one priority basically coming out of the SPLOST was the roads. So we set aside those monies. Of course, we're going to reimburse ourselves back for some properties that we purchased. And yesterday was the bond hearing over at the courthouse, and it was successfully completed. So we have validated our bonds for those projects up to $100 million and 50 to begin with. So the process will be listening to commissioners like we've been doing in the past, putting together and formulating lists. We've RFQs out there already for a new arena and also for a new convention center and also an RFQ for the jail. So we have multiple things going on. We're coming out the gates with great speed. And we've hit 4 of the top priorities already.
We'll keep those thoughts because we're going to be talking a lot about those projects in the next block. But I have a question. How are we going to continue the SPLOST collection, the extra penny on the dollar, when we stop making pennies? Has anybody thought about that? I mean,
no, I really haven't thought about that, but I assume that they're going to round it up and hopefully give a little bit more money.
So it'll be 5 cents on the dollar? I don't know. That's kind of been one of those things that's been making me go,
Well, everything's pretty much done digitally right now, so real people don't have all those coins in their pockets like we used to, so I think that things are changing.
Well, when we come back, we'll continue to discuss SPLOST projects and plans for the Bibb County Jail. So stay with us. Welcome back to Central Georgia Focus, the Ask Mayor Miller edition. We were talking about the jail just a little bit ago, and you've recently unveiled your kind of proposal to how to make things work in the short term. Can you just give us the highlights about what you're planning to kind of ease some of the conditions that we've heard about in the jail?
Sure. Well, first of all, we have 6 initiatives all rolled into one under our Macon Violence Prevention Program. The task force is probably the biggest part of that, our Wellness and Justice and Wellness Task Force. It's a collaboration of all kind of local folks, some elected, some not elected, to contribute to solving the issues that we may have. Some of those including reducing the population there at the jail, which is why we have our electronic monitoring program that we'll be paying for. You know, it costs sometimes up to $70 a day to house an inmate, and that's, you know, that's kind of in the middle. 60 to about 120 is what the national average is. So for $7 or $8, we can electronic monitor someone from their house, an ankle bracelet, even a SCRAM device for alcohol sensors on your body. Allow people to go to work. We've got adult readiness program they'll be going to, those types of things. But the in-reach program we need to improve at the jail to make sure that people that are unhoused have a place to go when they get out and they get the mental health treatment that they need, and people that need jobs need assistance for that. And then we have a backlog, at least on the short term, for those that are maybe incompetent and can't go to court. We really got to address people going through the process a lot quicker, so we're going to look for ways to fast track and expedite those in the jail, whether it be electronic monitoring or whether it be watching those bonds or probation violations. So, and the last thing we're doing, of course, is the RFQ on the jail. That's a potential expansion of the jail of another 100, 125 beds to separate the most violent folks who've been arrested there and those that have mental issues there. So I think those are going to be a very holistic approach to taking care of the needs over there until such time and later on that a jail could be built.
You kind of touched on it a little bit, but we've just recently had another inmate death and a parent hanging suicide in the cell. So there are programs, mental health programs in there, kind of like Macon Violence Prevention Program on the outside, but there are people going into the jail to deal with people who are having those kinds of issues and may be suicidal?
That's correct. We have several. In this particular instance, there's no evidence that the person was suicidal. There's been multiple arrests, and it's very unfortunate that someone would take their own life. But that happens out in the public as well, right? Mm-hmm. Even more so than in the jail, because there's a lot more opportunities outside the jail. But it's certainly an incident like that can happen within a minute. You don't expect an officer to visit every cell every minute, and they caught it within a short period of time. And of course, he succumbed to his injuries. But we do have mental health treatment in the jail. We could have some additional treatment there, and that's what the beds or infirmaries that we're looking at for that purpose will be. But you got to make sure they're run properly. River Edge does a good job, but we've got to make sure we kind of tighten that up. And that's why we've got these different people on the task force, including someone from the State Department as well, and a clinical director from River Edge.
A couple of weeks ago, the grand jury went in for their regular inspection. Could they at any time order the county to build a new jail, and would that involve raising taxes if that happened?
Well, first of all, they don't have the authority to do that. Okay. What I found interesting this time in the grand jury is they didn't come back and say you need to build a new jail. They talked about expansion. It really wasn't as bad as what they had reported on before. But you have to understand that grand jurors are regular people that probably clean their house and clean their restrooms and clean their yards. And when they get into a kind of an enclosed, darker space, they feel a little uneasy, but also they're thinking, this doesn't like my kitchen at home. Well, it's not supposed to, because it's not your home. At the same time, inmates are responsible for cleaning their areas, and most of those places in the jail that are in littering and things like that are for inmates. You're supposed to be taking care of that. Quite honestly, the same thing happens with the plumbing backups and things like that. But like I said, we're not here to do the blame game. We're here to kind of take care of some issues. I'm happy to say that when we began this project, it was about 1,018 people in jail. As of yesterday, we had 970. Our audit that I didn't mention just a moment ago is going real well. We're seeing some things that we can make improvements on. Got a few people out on electronic monitoring, been able to send people back to their home places that they needed to go to handle other business. And we found some people that the bond and electronic monitoring and mental health options were all available to them. So not necessarily taking credit for the whole decrease, but we're certainly trending in the right direction by dropping almost 50 people so far.
Well, you mentioned the request for qualifications process for some of these major projects, including the new arena to be built in the parking lot of the current Coliseum. Y'all chose MFA Program Management out of Memphis. So how is MFA poised to bring this project to fruition, even from private funds, not SPLOST or taxpayer dollars?
Well, we're looking for multiple ways to do that, and it's not uncommon to do public-private partnerships. Some of the things that could be used could be something that'll be on our agenda in the next couple of months. An additional charge per hotel room that could help finance this. They do it all over the place, right? Just left Atlanta not too long ago, and you have a little bit higher percentage there. You go to Savannah, they've got an occupation tax on top of their hotel rooms. Something that's kind of nominal that you don't really recognize, but you have to do that when you stay there. That's one way to do it. You also can have buy-in from an organization like OVG or other organizations can say, you know what, I want a piece of this, place right here. I'm willing to invest our money. They've done that in other locations. Right. In exchange to have our name out there. You've also got sponsorship opportunities there. You also got opportunities that you have there for other contributions from other authorities and things of that nature. Whether it be Urban Development Authority, even the school system could contribute to that as well. So we're looking at multiple ways to fund all these, because we have $2.4 billion in projects, and we're certainly not going to take our $450 million and meet that goal. And we're certainly not going to leverage all of our funds, because a lot of that's going to be done for roads and recreation and public safety. So we're looking for creative ways that we can finance this thing, something we can live with, but it also creates funds for our community. Different from a jail. This is something that creates funds. So quite honestly, you can never build a new jail unless you have a new arena or a new convention center, because that's what drives the money to our community to be able to build a new jail.
And speaking of bringing people in, also the RFQ went out for the new convention center, civic center kind of hotel there at 108 First Street. So what are you looking for in that project?
Well, looking for partners as well. We got an RFQ out there now for a developer to come on. I know we're going to have an interest in that project because they started calling before we even posted the project. You know, some large site, once you have that price, once it was cleared. We've also got use, an agreement, at least allow the property to be used for a hotel convention center from the owner next door, the parking lot there. And it ties in very nicely with what we've been doing over there at the Renaissance on the River, including a part of that for Mercer Medical School, which helps as a building block there to really give a beautiful river project there and make it more walkable. We need a more walkable downtown for people to come stay. We need more hotel rooms. This allows us to do both of those at the same time without burdening the taxpayers. And once again, if we don't keep up with all these other communities that are doing this, we're going to fall behind and not have the money we need to keep those taxes low and to use outside money to finance things in our community so our taxpayers don't have to do that.
Do you think there'll be some sort of synergy in the design between the two projects because they're so close?
Well, if you look at the design we've already put out there, it was done by TVS, which is a very respectful company, and you can kind of see how it already ties in. So,
but we haven't seen the Mercer. I haven't seen the Mercer one, but
well,
you might have seen the Mercer one.
You'll see it very soon. They're getting ready to release that out in the very near future as well. But it's all going to tie in together there, including the possibility of a new store coming to that area. So I think it's going to give us residential, entertainment, hotel, possibly a new store, and of course medical center there, medical school there. And Mercer always has the ability to attract a good hotel near their schools. And if you look at the two hotels directly across their school now, they're one of the top performers in our county.
Well, when we come back, we'll talk more about what's going on in Macon-Bibb County. Did you hear him say $2.4 billion? I did. Stay tuned. Thanks for staying with us on this Ask Mayor Miller program as we're talking about development projects here in Macon and Bibb County. Mr. Mayor, what is going on now? What's the latest with the Middle Georgia Regional Airport renovations?
Well, several things are going on there. Number one, we are finally starting the expansion of the runway, which has been a long time coming. There's a lot of permitting that has to happen there to get everything done, and we've been navigating those, whether it's Macon Water Authority, whether it's FAA, just general, demolition permits, things of that nature. So finally able to do that, getting down to the finish line on that. We got the bid on the vault, which is moving all the electrical for the FBO there. So you'll start seeing that come out of the ground in the next several months, and look to be next fall. We'll open up the new guitar shaped, piano shaped FBO there at the airport. So lots going on there. Hopefully in the very near future, we're going to be announcing some new airlines coming, some new destinations. So I look forward to a press release coming out on that in the near future. So lots of great things are taking off the airport. We're excited about that, and certainly as part of our overall development for Macon-Bibb County.
Recently, y'all earmarked about $30,000 to be used to market and promote Contour's flight to Washington Dulles Airport. So how does that help? Is that designed to increase ridership or passengers so that more airlines might want to come? Is that what that's for?
Well, it's out of airport funds, by the way, so that's money that they earn at the airport, so with their funds that they were using to do that. But you have to market the airport, right, for other commercial airlines to see, things are going on to increase the ridership, so you can use less subsidies, so you can spread that out for other locations and other commercial airlines as well. So it all works together. We've done a great job at promoting things. We're also working with the Chamber of Commerce and Visit Macon, kind of tie all that together with our businesses as well as our tourism. So you can expect to see a lot more in the airport in the next several years, and really in the next year, it'll really start developing a lot.
I thought that was interesting that Visit Macon was going to help manage the new Civic Center Hotel. They're getting a lot on their plate.
Well, that's a big part of our community, so we certainly can use all the help we can get.
And they're the ones bringing in conventions generally. Also, major construction projects going on downtown, like with the Neal Lofts and the D.T. Walton Lofts. Ronnie Redding would like to know if the Central City Commons project between 1st and 2nd Plum and Poplar is still viable.
It's certainly still viable. I think if you pay attention in the next 30, 60 days, you'll see some news on that coming soon. So
good.
We have a lot of projects going on downtown. We got our own lofts that are coming right behind City Hall, about 146 of those. Some retail there as well, and of course a 4 or 5 story parking deck. That's starting to pour concrete now, which is an encouraging sign. And then Rosa Parks Square will be complete in the next few months. And then of course we'll get on to the City Club, the Health Club, whatever you want to call it. We'll start doing that this fall, probably winter. So still lots to do in Macon-Bibb County, and we'll have some development around the Macon Mall too, so keep your eye out for that one.
Well, CCJ Director Debbie Blankenship wanted to know what is going to go on with the Macon Health Club and the bank building across the street.
Well, she'll just have to sit and wait. If you remember, we had some limitations when we did the swap with Mercer for that, for the atrium Navicent for that property. And then we couldn't do anything until the fall, winter this year, according to the contract that we signed with them. So we're still on par for that, but we certainly got interest and people waiting on that.
Well, now the Macon Water Authority has encountered some recent issues with sinkholes downtown, and there's a whole host of other projects and deferred maintenance and other expenses. And we have the NAACP and former Commissioner Lucas and others calling for no new water rate increases. So are there going to be SPLOST funds to help with that, or can you see the county and working with the MWA some, or how do you think that's going to resolve?
We always work with our water authority. It's one of our great partners that we have. It has nothing to do with your water rate, so people need to just forget about that. That's a misnomer. Whether we give money or not for stormwater or for the levy, it's not going to affect whether they have to raise rates or not. Those are two totally different types of funds, two totally types of monies that go into those funds, and they have the stormwater fee now. They probably need some more. We're going to work with them. I'm sure there's going to be some consistent giving to them of our SPLOST over the next 10 years, but don't confuse that with water rates. It has zero to do with your water rates over there. So we could give them $25 million tomorrow and the water rates will still go up. Quite honestly, I've had businesses in many parts of the state, and Macon-Bibb County still has the least expensive water there is and the best tasting water. So we're just not used to it here when you get a rate increase like that, because there haven't been a rate increase for quite a while. So.
And we've been talking a lot about the building blocks, of construction projects, but building blocks of society. I wanted to talk with you. I don't think we've ever talked about your literary alliance. What is that designed to do?
Well, it's multiple faceted. It's getting the right people in the room at the right time. It's not only attacking like reading and writing, it's also financial literacy to make sure people understand the process there. We're starting to expand that. It's a great collaboration with the school system. We're going to continue to do that. They'll be opening up their office in the mall very soon so they can continue to expand. But we want to get both our youth reading on grade level, but also our adults that can go back to school to get their education so we can improve our workforce. So literacy is the building block of everything. It levels the playing field and certainly can help us fill the jobs that we need for all the great jobs we brought in over the last several years.
We only have about 30 seconds, but I also noticed that there's a Macon violence prevention partner, a Lead with Literacy, that's working with a dozen families at Bloomfield Gilead this summer. So how do these help society?
Well, it helps, like I said, it helps lift the whole family up, not just the individual itself. It helps them in school and their job and the workforce and just day-to-day operations. So we targeted that specific area over there with this. This is one of our MVP grants through our community foundation. So it's another Macon violence prevention tool that nobody thinks about, but we're leading the literacy. That's a great program. We're going to continue to fund that.
Read to succeed, right? I remember that. So thank you so much, Mayor, for joining with us. And remember, you have a seat right here, right between us. Send your questions to mercerccj@gmail.com, and we'll ask the mayor the next time we get together. Thanks for joining us.